Welcome back to another episode of the African Football Report on the African Five-A-Side podcast. I'm going to try to be very quick with this one. So, you guys already know Africa's a country, so on and so forth. We're just here really to recap one match. So, this is going to be a very, very quick video that I plan on shooting just before I sleep. Um, Orlando Pirates are through to the semifinals. They drew with MC Algiers 0-0 in South Africa at Orlando Stadium. And now they'll be facing Pyramids in the semifinals of the 2024-2025 African Champions League. So all of that we know, but how did they do this? Let's break the match down. And honestly, I was like really excited to watch this match and to break it down and immediately after the final whistle, but I thought the match was really boring. Like I almost dozed off three or four times when I was watching this match. It wasn't one that really inspired me to go and break it down and rewatch it a second time or anything like that. So I think it might have been the case for a lot of you as well. But still, uh, it was a match that was played, so we should break it down. So MC of Algiers, they line up in a 4-4-2, but it's a diamond 4-4-2. So the midfield is Ben Khamassa at the base. You had Akram Bouras, and you had I'm drawing blanks on who the other central midfielder was, but Arbi Tapti was at the top of the diamond, and he would sometimes move out to the wing. And then you had two strikers, Zakaria Haji and Mohamed Saliu Bangura as well. So I think this was actually a good move from Khalid bin Yahya because he has such limited options on the wing. Keeper Zunan, one of his wingers, was really, really disappointing in the first match. And so I think he doesn't really trust any of his wingers. Remember, prior to this match, we said that MC Algiers would probably try to sit back and absorb pressure and not concede a goal. And so I think that's also he was trying to do was close any spaces in the middle of the field. And if Pirates were going to attack, force them out wide. Pirates lined up. It was an interesting formation. It was a 4-3-3. Um, but it was different when they were defending. When they were defending, it sort of became a 5-2-3 or 5-3-2. So the back line is what was most interesting. You had Mbokazi, who was like a left-footed center half as a left back. Then you had in the middle CBC and Toki, and then you had on the right side Dino Van Rooyen. And what happened was when Pirates were defending and they were dropping deep, everybody would shift to the right, and Dion Hoto would come down from a left wing position, and he would play as a left wide fullback. So that way they had five defenders, Mbata and Makaula as the double pivot, and then you had Mofokeng in front of them at times when they're in possession. When they're out of possession, you'd probably line up more on the wing, and then Kota on the other side, and Evidence Makopa up top. So I really liked what Rivero did there. I think because we said those three center halves, Mbokazi, Toki, and CBC worked really well together and they defended aerial duels really well together. But in Algiers, they started off like even in possession, they were playing with those five defenders. But you don't want to play that way at home. You know, we talked about how Pirates and Sundowns and Pyramids, even though they were taking advantage to the second leg, they would probably want to come out and play a more balanced match than some of the other sides like we saw Esperance do in the first leg against Mamelodi Sundowns in Pretoria, where they were really sitting back a little too much and absorbing too much pressure. Um, so yeah, prior to the match, I just want to refresh our memories. What did we think was going to happen, and then what actually happened? Prior to the match, I thought MC of Algiers would sit back, kind of like Esperance did in Pretoria, and just time their attacks. I use that analogy of nitrous oxide, right? NOS in a car. So they're going to wait. And then the last 15, 20 minutes, send everybody forward, sub on everybody, pump balls in the air, and try to get a goal. And then I thought a key to the match as well for Orlando Pirates would be to score a goal in the first half because that would really free them up. And in that case, they would be able to, you know, take it easy and they wouldn't have to. I think it would just calm nerves a little bit. But that's not really how this match unfolded. Really from the get-go, in the opening 20 minutes, you could see that MC of Algiers were playing with more intensity than I thought they would in altitude. They were pressing Orlando Pirates, and I think they were indicating that they wanted to hold on to possession of the ball in this match. The thing is, Pirates, they were okay with that. They were like setting off in a medium block. They weren't really pressing at all, even though Pirates, I think, in this competition have probably one of the best presses in the competition. But they were setting off in the medium block, not pressing, letting MC of Algiers do those windshield wipers, pass the ball from side to side to side to side. Um, and they were more, I think, focused on shutting down any spaces between the lines. So if any MC of Algiers player was trying to find spaces between the lines, it wasn't working at all. The only thing that was working for MC Algiers, I can't even say it was working, but the only slight chances that they did create were off of long balls. So long balls from center halves usually. Abdullawi, left-footed center half, the captain, he would hit long diagonals. So in the 7th minute, for example, Zakaria and Aiji, near the long ball from Abdullawi nearly found him, but there was a last second tackle. I forget from who. I want to say Mbukazi. Yeah, Mbukazi. In the 12th minute, another long ball, and it's Bangura this time, um, gets the ball over the top and gets a shot on goal. Um, another long ball to Bangura in the 20th minute. So really, you could see very early on that was the only way they were going to trouble Pirates. It wasn't going to be with, passes between the lines into little pockets of space. Um, so slowly but surely, I thought MC Algiers are better in the first 15 minutes, but slowly but surely, Pirates starts to get into this match. And it's a weird one because again, they didn't really have possession, too much possession of the ball. So I think it must be weird for maybe Pirates fans because I think they want the ball, they expect to have possession of the ball, and then in the first and the second leg, I think their side set up without the ball. And I think that must have been a little bit weird. I don't know how you guys felt about it, speaking to the Orlando Pirates fan. But again, it was a conscious decision in both matches. Um, but in the 20th minute, yeah, Pirates are getting more comfortable. Talent Bata, man, he has probably one of the nicest sequences of play that I've seen in these quarterfinals. Um, just like dribbling around almost like in a circle, nipping past 4 or 5 MC of Algiers players and releasing Mohau and Kota into space with a beautiful through pass. And Kota latches onto it and just with his right foot, his wrong foot, crossing the ball to Evidence Makopa. It's just maybe 6 centimeters above Makopa's head, unfortunately, for Orlando Pirates at least. But when Pirates were threatening, they were the ones that were passing between the lines. They would like Mofokeng does that so good. He finds a space between the defending line and the midfield line, drifting around until he has, a feet of space, and then receiving it with usually with a very good first touch, um, and then knowing what he's going to do with the ball when he receives it. So as Pirates grew into the match, they really sterilized MC of Algiers, and it wasn't until the 40th minute that MC of Algiers, I think they had a free kick that was a very tame shot from Bangura, and that was it in the first half. Halftime whistle was blown, and then you see all of MC of Algiers players like and staff rushing at the referee, screaming at him because I think they wanted a VAR shout, or they were complaining that maybe a foul wasn't called. I think at the very last kick of the first half. And I thought the referee was probably a little too patient with everyone. If I was him, I think I would have booked everybody and maybe sent a few people off. I think he was just trying to keep this match, keep all 11 players on the pitch at all times. But uh, no excuse for the way they were treating the referee. Don't get me wrong, like sometimes referees are really bad, and I can understand the emotion of the players who are, putting their blood, sweat, and tears in every single waking moment, trying to concentrate on just getting the little margins and little details right. And then a referee, because of whatever the case may be, usually incompetence, but sometimes other things, ruins that. And I can understand the emotion of a player getting the better of them. But when the referee's okay and you're still complaining like that, that's what I really didn't like. Anyways, whatever. Second half starts. In the 52nd minute, MC Algiers have a corner kick. Aib Abdullawi gets a head on it. He heads it down into this area, the shoulder area. I don't think it was a penalty. I think it was Tepelu Toki, but I'm not sure. But they were again screaming for VAR, not too violently this time. But Pirates were slowly but surely proving that they can defend set pieces again, especially with this lineup when they line up in Bukazi, CBC, and Toki. So I think this is something to keep in mind depending on who they face in the very near future. In the 66th minute, we get that Nas boost. MC of Algiers bring on Emmanuel Keeper Zunan, Mohamed Zugrana for Zakaria Naiji and Albi Tepti, and then they also bring in Sofiane Beyazid for Mohamed bin Goura. So really, they switch the whole front line. And for me, this is you're playing all your cards. All right, we have fresh legs now in attack. Please do something. you um, and from the 66th minute to the 84th minute, as I'm looking at my notes, maybe I was dozing off over here, but I didn't write one occasion that was created from the 66th minute to the 84th minute. I remember the next thing I wrote in the 84th minute was, it feels like MC of Algiers can make 1,500 more passes without actually threatening to score. That's what it felt like. Like it was just slow and the passes that were being made were being made in their own end or along a back line, maybe 40 yards away from goal, even if it wasn't the Pirates' half of the pitch. And, and Pirates were just like, okay, we're fine with you wasting your time in that sense. Like, you can stay out there away from our goal. Um, and then just 1 minute later, after I wrote down that note, I could see the MC of Algiers coach, Khalid bin Yahya. He was going like this on the touchline, like go, go, like waving his players forward. Like, come on, guys, do something. Like occupy. It seemed like a lot of the attacking players were drifting to the ball. Like Pirates were keeping the ball 40 yards away from goal, and the MC of Algiers players were drifting to the ball. Instead of, everybody moving towards the Pirates goal, they were just stuck in those, that middle part of the pitch. So Khalid bin Yahya is waving players forward, and they finally get a half chance. Um, I forget how it goes, but I think Baburas was. I think it was a shot that was deflected in the 85th minute. And then in the 88th minute, it's the best chance of the match, really, for MC of Algiers. It's Hlemiya puts in a corner kick, the ball gets cleared, and it gets played back to the original corner kick taker, Hlemiya, again. And this time he puts in a good cross, and it's Menezla, the young defender from MC of Algiers that was subbed on, that gets a head on it. He heads it into the ground, but straight at Sipo Chain. And I wrote down like that's the chance. You just need one chance to score one goal to send this match into extra time. And I thought it would be set pieces throughout the two legs. And Orlando Pirates proved me wrong, defending set pieces very well over the two legs. But they did give up that one half chance. And I can't believe I'm making such a big deal about it because he headed the ball from maybe the penalty spot. He was very far away. It was a small chance that it was ever going to get in. But sometimes like that's why I was thinking they had a chance in this match because they just needed, like that. Like if he put in the perfect header, they could have scored, and then you never know what happens in extra time or in penalty kicks. Um, but yeah, that's really, really the only real chance that MC of Algiers have. They had a nice move in the 90th minute. It was from the left back Marwan Khalif to Darawi, Issa Darawi, not Issa Darawi. Zakaria Darawi. And then he passes the ball to Zunan, keeper junior, who tries to side foot it, but he's like facing the goal. I think he's at the 18-yard box, and the ball goes over there to the corner kick. So it's just indicative of how poor MC of Algiers' attacking line was over the 180 minutes. Um, and then Paris actually hit the post in extra time. Mabasa comes on from Makopa. Some messy defending from, I think, they're defending a set piece, MC of Algiers. I think it's Soufiane Bayazid, fluffs a clearance, and Mabasa turns and hits a shot with his left foot, but it hits the far post. So, yeah, honestly, I thought it was a pretty boring match. I think Pirates were absolutely okay with that being a boring match. And I think even MC of Algiers were okay with that in the first half, but they probably wanted to create more in the second half, and they couldn't. Looking at the statistics, 63% possession for MC of Algiers, but only one shot on target. 377 passes in the entire match, which is respectable. That's not bad at all. But 192 of the 377, so more than half, were in their own half, in MC of Algiers' own half. And I guarantee you that if you did like the 65% of the pitch away from the Pirates' goal, like just taking away the last 18 meters or even the last 30 meters, that number would probably be 80% of MCF Algiers passes were probably played there, 80 or probably higher, probably more than 90%. That's how well Pirates dominated the space in this match. They didn't dominate the ball, they dominated the space. And it was a very mature performance from Orlando Pirates. When you set out to do something and then you implement the game plan, you put in place a game plan, you implement it when the stakes are so high. Um, that's what you call a professional performance, a mature performance. It's such a difficult thing to do at this level. And I think it's probably one of the most rewarding things you can do for as a coach, is put in place a game plan and your players go and they execute it to a T. Um, so yeah, Pirates they advance, and I think they feel very good about themselves at the moment. Mouloudia, look, this was their first game back in the Champions League, and first start campaign back in the Champions League in a while. For them to get out of the group stages and to go out to Orlando Pirates just on one goal aggregate, I don't think it's the end of the world. They're still first in their own league. They still won the Algerian Super Cup recently. Um, so yeah, like they're still having a decent season, but this match made me really reflect about one thing is I feel like when I was watching throughout the Champions League campaign this year, I feel like the coaching in South Africa or even in Southern Africa is at a much, much higher level than it is in North Africa. When I look at, you know, Rulani was the first one that really opened my eyes, to be honest, but or Pizzo was actually Pizzo. When you look at Rulani Makwana, you look at uh, I don't know, like Jose Rivero. You look at, I'm not talking about South African coaches, but coaches that coach in South Africa. But even coaches, I think like Gavin Hunt or Eric Tinkler, if they came to North Africa, would maybe be, top five coaches in any of those respective leagues, if not even if not higher, probably top three coaches or more. Um, so yeah, that's one thing that I thought of, and I started thinking, why? Why is that the case? Because Miguel Cardozo again was at Esperance at the beginning of the year, and I think the difference is that in South Africa, clubs can be a lot more patient. A lot of these coaches that I just named were at clubs for sometimes 3 to 5 to 7 years. Whereas in North Africa, that's very, 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 I could say it 1,000 times more, very rare. Um, and what I think it is that in North Africa, they prioritize winning at all costs over principles of playing good football, you know. And winning at all costs, I think number one, it gives fans too much of a voice. Fans become too important. And fans are, by their definition, fan is short for fanatic. They are by definition irrational. You cannot give them the keys to the kingdom because it's going to be extreme decisions all the time, because they support with their emotions. We want them to support with their emotions, but they cannot run a club. You cannot run a club with emotions. So the lack of a long-term vision from a lot of these presidents because they feel like they're under pressure from fans, like that, that's a big, big problem. I think fans are a big problem, but also a lot of these presidents, they're the ones sometimes that pull the triggers too early. Like I don't think Esperance fans were going to storm the training ground if Laurencio Regenkamp wasn't fired, and they 2 weeks before he plays against Mamelodi Sundowns at Esperance de Tunis, sometimes it's a lot of these presidents of clubs as well. So I think it's something that's in the general culture on the continent overall, but in North Africa it's very acute that the short-term results have too much of a premium and not enough attention is paid to long-term results, long-term visions. And as I'm saying this, I just have one final count. It's not a counterpoint, but one thing I want to throw out there as well for food for thought is maybe one thing I'm thinking about. Am I just saying this because we have two South African sides in the semifinals? Because um, last year or 2 years ago, I was criticizing South African sides like Rulani Mokoena, Mamelodi Sundowns, saying they're too naive. They don't engage in the dark arts. They don't have a win at all cost mentality. They're not completely obsessed with winning. I remember saying these things very specifically about Mamelodi Sundowns and Rulani Mokoena. Um, and that was the criticism. It's like they're too naive. They don't have that win at all cost mentality and attitude. And now I'm saying South African clubs are they have visionaries at the helm, like they have long-term strategies in place. This is much better than the short-termism of North Africa. So maybe that's you guys get an inside look at the sham of, analysts, where a lot of the times we're doing what they call in North America Monday morning quarterbacking, always looking at things, a 2020 vision in the rearview mirror, so yeah, it's just something that I've been thinking about a lot recently, though, and I think it's going to be a theme that I'm probably going to bring up time and time again as we continue to move on into the summer months, probably, and with that is going to be a lot of coaching hires. So yeah, the semifinals are set up. Just a quick word about that, and we're going to end uh, this podcast. We have, as you guys know, Mamelodi Sundowns against Al Ahly, Pyramids FC versus Orlando Pirates. Two South African clubs, two Egyptian clubs. Egypt versus South Africa. And the great thing here is that we don't have the South African clubs against one another until the final, and same thing for the Egyptian clubs. So I will break these down in great detail after the weekend. Okay, so right before the matches. Um, but what I would say is that I like the fact that you have Sundowns versus Al Ahly and Pyramids versus Orlando Pirates because for me, Sundowns and Al Ahly, they they embody something that's, it's more establishment, resources, tradition, recent domination in their league play, and then obviously in continental play as well. And Pyramids and Orlando Pirates is more like, don't get me wrong, Pirates are the more historic club and they have, they're the more legitimate clubs in terms of fan bases and things like that. And Pyramids are more, the newer, flashy, money injection club. But still, from if I look at it from a strictly CAF Champions League lens, uh, there are two sides that have recently come back to the CAF Champions League. They're playing good football. They're using young talent. scoring lots of goals, and they've been the two sides I think that have taken the Champions League by storm in a sense because we're expecting that kind of success from Sundowns and from Al Ahly, and even the performances from Pyramids and Pirates I think over the course of this tournament have been better than the performances from Sundowns and Al Ahly. So I'm just happy that we have two of the same profiles over here and two of the same profiles over here, and that way we'll have one of each in the final. But yeah, so I don't care who's gonna win. Obviously, I just hope that we either have an all Egypt or an all South African final because I think that's gonna add a lot of spice to it. But I think I'm gonna do like a 1 hour podcast, 30 minutes for each match next week. So please, if you enjoy the CAF Champions League, like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll speak to you all very, very soon. Take care all and peace.